Before we begin, I thought it would be fun if everyone lets me know in the comments where they're watching this video from. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's start today's episode. A potential wormhole has reportedly been discovered at Skinwalker Ranch, according to a recent announcement. The team currently investigating the site and its anomalies has shared photographs as evidence of this phenomenon. For those unfamiliar, Skinwalker Ranch, also known as Sherman Ranch, is located in the Uinta Basin of northeastern Utah and is shrouded in mystery. Over the years, numerous individuals have claimed to witness bizarre occurrences, including strange portals appearing in the sky and unidentified objects passing through them. Spanning 480 acres, the ranch has long been associated with unexplained phenomena, such as sightings of mysterious aircraft, encounters with unusual entities, inexplicable livestock deaths, crop formations, and legends of skinwalkers. Additionally, it borders the Ute Indian Reservation. The Ute people were granted the Winter Valley Reservation in October 1861 through an executive order issued by President Abraham Lincoln. Later, in January 1882, the Uncompahgre Reservation, also known as the Eerie Reservation, was established and eventually merged with the Winter Reservation in 1886, forming what is now known as the Winter and Eerie Reservation. This land has been home to the Ute for over 150 years, covering more than 4.5 million acres. For generations, indigenous peoples have spoken of the neighboring ranch being situated along the path of the Skinwalker, which has led to strict prohibitions against approaching the area. A skinwalker is believed to be a malevolent being capable of shape-shifting, and the Ute people hold this entity in deep reverence. Historically, the Ute tribe inhabited regions that now include Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico before eventually settling on the reservation. Known for their fierce and warlike reputation, the Ute once formed alliances with the Navajo to combat mutual enemies. However, after acquiring horses from the Spanish, the Ute began capturing Navajo individuals and selling them in New Mexico's markets. During the Civil War, some Ute groups aligned with Kit Carson in a military campaign against the Navajo, ultimately forcing them from their lands. This led to the infamous Long Walk of the Navajo, in which they were forcibly relocated to the Fort Sumner Reservation in New Mexico. Though the Navajo were eventually permitted to return to their ancestral lands in the Four Corners region, the Ute came to believe that the Navajo had cursed them in retaliation for past betrayals. As a result, the Ute began experiencing disturbances attributed to skinwalkers. Their belief in these supernatural beings has endured for over 15 generations, with stories of their existence passed down through time. However, they do not hold the belief that skinwalkers reside on the ranch. Instead, they believe that skinwalkers seek refuge in a nearby location known as Dark Canyon. Based on reports, skinwalkers have been frequently observed by the Ute people in the region. These beings have been sighted near the ranch, along the road to Fort Duchesne, and in different parts of the reservation. One description paints them as human-like creatures with dog heads, while others have described them as being more wolf-like. Another account depicts them as big, black, hairy humanoids with remarkable speed. Witnesses have also claimed that these entities possess unusually large and intimidating red eyes. Additionally, there are reports of people encountering and capturing photographs of substantial footprints believed to be left behind by skinwalkers. The Myers family settled on the ranch in 1905. Initially, there were a few small buildings on the northwest corner of the ranch, located at the base of Skinwalker Ridge. Eventually, the original homestead was deserted and a new residence was established on the eastern side of the ranch. From the 1930s until 1987, Kenneth John Myers and his wife Edith Myers resided on the property. Although no unusual incidents were reported by the Myers themselves during their time there, some of their neighbors did have experiences worth noting. During the 1950s, a series of peculiar incidents started happening in the basin. There were multiple accounts of unidentified objects observed above the property, and these sightings persisted for several decades. It is worth noting that this wasn't the initial occurrence of unusual aircraft sightings. The earliest documented mention of such sightings goes back to the late 1700s, when Spanish explorers who were in search of the Spanish Trail passed through the basin and reported observing strange crafts hovering above their nightly campfires. The reports of unidentified objects were numerous, with descriptions ranging from fireballs to aircraft of different sizes and shapes, including round, oval, cigar-shaped, and triangular. Some of these objects were enveloped in a green glow, while others emitted red beams or displayed colored lights from underneath. The influx of calls became so overwhelming for the Utah Highway Patrol that by the 1970s, reports were no longer filed. During this same period, local ranchers also reported strange incidents involving cattle deaths. Joseph Hicks, a retired science teacher from Roosevelt, Utah, investigated over 400 sightings in the basin and discovered a compelling connection between these reports and the mysterious cattle deaths. Through his research, Hicks gathered numerous eyewitness accounts from individuals who claimed to have seen living beings inside unidentified objects, visible through windows or portholes. In 1994, Terry and Gwen Sherman purchased the ranch, which had been abandoned by the Myers family since 1987. To their surprise, they found deadbolt locks installed on every door and window, both inside and outside the house. Even the kitchen cabinets were secured with bolts. Additionally, iron stakes with heavy chains were found at both ends of the house, likely used by the previous owners to restrain large guard dogs. Despite these unsettling discoveries, the Shermans moved in with their 2 children and livestock, determined to make the ranch their home. However, on the very day they arrived, they spotted a large coyote, or possibly a wolf, lurking in one of their fields. The animal quickly made its way toward a pen where their livestock was kept. It proceeded to seize a young calf by its nose and attempted to pull it through the bars of the enclosure. Terry Sherman and his father attempted to free the calf by striking the animal, but their efforts proved to be unsuccessful. When their initial attempt was unsuccessful, Sherman resorted to firing at the animal with a magnum from close range. However, despite being fired at multiple times, the wolf carried on gripping the calf. Eventually, after a few more shots, the animal let go of the calf and calmly stared at the men. Surprisingly, there were no visible signs of injury on the animal. In an attempt to understand what had happened, the men pursued the animal's footprints for approximately a mile before they abruptly ceased, as if the animal had mysteriously vanished. This incident served as a hint of what was yet to come. A couple of weeks later, while Gwen Sherman was driving in her car, she came across a sizable wolf that had its back aligned with the top of her window. There was also a canine-like creature accompanying the wolf, but she couldn't determine its exact species. Throughout the following 2 years, the Shermans and their fellow residents witnessed a variety of unusual creatures within their vicinity. These sightings entailed the presence of vibrant, non-indigenous species, as well as towering mysterious creatures resembling large humanoids. During an incident, the Shermans witnessed an unusual creature, reminiscent of a hyena, engaging in an attack on one of their horses. The creature was described as having a low stature, substantial muscle mass, weighing around 200 pounds, with red curly fur and a tail. When Mr. Sherman approached the animal, it mysteriously disappeared. Later examination of the horse revealed multiple claw marks on its legs. Several months afterward, a neighboring resident reported seeing a comparable creature dashing across their land. The Shermans, just like their fellow residents, also witnessed unusual luminosities and airborne entities with over 12 sightings occurring on a single night. It was during these encounters with unidentified objects that they also faced the unfortunate demise or vanishing of 7 of their finest livestock. Out of these, 4 vanished completely, while 3 others were discovered lifeless. 3 of the deceased cows displayed an unusual anomaly, a distinctive void in the middle of the left eyeball, while remaining unscathed otherwise. Another bovine specimen had a comparable aperture in its left eye, accompanied by a significant 6-inch cavity, approximately an inch in depth, carved into part of its body. The final cow subjected to this act had been observed alive merely 5 minutes earlier by the Sherman's son. A particular cow among the missing livestock appeared to have mysteriously vanished from the snowy landscape. Its tracks led into a field but abruptly ceased. The ground was scattered with snapped twigs and branches, and the tree canopies seemed to have been severed. Throughout this period, a variety of peculiar incidents transpired as well. It was not uncommon for pastures to inexplicably illuminate during the nighttime hours. Furthermore, there were reports of audible sounds resembling the workings of heavy machinery emanating from beneath the ground. Poltergeist-like occurrences, such as objects vanishing only to reappear later, were also observed. Additionally, eerie, disembodied voices frequently communicating in an unfamiliar language were heard from above. Additionally, peculiar patterns of flattened grass, commonly referred to as crop circles, were discovered on the ranch. In May 1996, Sherman experienced a significant event that served as the breaking point. While outside with his 3 dogs, he noticed a vibrant blue object swiftly moving in the field nearby. Prompted by curiosity, he encouraged his dogs to chase after it. The dogs energetically pursued the object, expressing their excitement through barks, until they disappeared into a dense thicket. Sherman was alarmed when he heard 3 distressing yelps from his pets and realized they were unresponsive to his calls. The following day, when he ventured out to search for them, all he discovered were 3 spherical, greasy masses with evidence of scorching. Unfortunately, the dogs were never found again. After enduring 2 years of unsettling experiences, the family decided to go public with their story. The first reports about the strange events at the ranch appeared in the Deseret News in Salt Lake City, Utah, and were later followed by a series of articles written by journalist George Knapp for the Las Vegas Mercury. Knapp, along with Colm Kelleher, later co-authored a book detailing past investigations in the area, covering reports of mysterious sightings, missing and deceased livestock, encounters with large creatures with glowing red eyes that seemed impervious to gunfire, invisible objects generating powerful magnetic fields, crop circle formations, Bigfoot-like entities, and instances of poltergeist activity. The Shermans initially planned to sell the ranch, but before they could, they received an unexpected offer from Robert Bigelow, a wealthy businessman and founder of the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS. After reading about the strange occurrences in a newspaper article, Bigelow became interested in purchasing the property. He bought the ranch for $200,000, with the condition that the Shermans would not disclose any further details about their experiences. Following the acquisition, Bigelow established a state-of-the-art research facility on the property, equipping it with advanced sensory technology, a team of highly qualified scientists and field investigators, and 24/7 security personnel. Moving on to the next mystery. In the vast and often enigmatic world of scientific exploration, few discoveries spark the imagination as deeply as the possibility of entities existing beyond our known reality. Dr. Daniel Nems, a trailblazing scientist and researcher, is at the forefront of this fascinating field. He is best known for developing an advanced energy device called energy vision, which he claims has the ability to capture images of these elusive entities. With a background in quantum physics and energy research, Dr. Nems has dedicated his career to studying the relationship between energy, matter, and dimensions that extend beyond conventional understanding. His curiosity eventually led him to explore theories of parallel dimensions and alternate realities, fueling his groundbreaking work in the field. Strangely, despite publishing his findings, very little information about Dr. Daniel Nems remains accessible, and much of his work has been erased from the internet. This has led some to speculate that he mysteriously disappeared not long after sharing his discoveries. Nems' fascination with this field was partly fueled by the groundbreaking work of theoretical physicists who proposed the existence of multiple dimensions beyond our conventional three-dimensional space. Motivated by a deep curiosity and a drive to push the boundaries of human understanding, he began developing experimental energy devices designed to detect and interact with these hidden realms. His most notable creation, Energy Vision, is the result of years of dedicated research and experimentation. This advanced device integrates principles of quantum mechanics, electromagnetism, and cutting-edge imaging technology to allegedly capture images of entities residing in parallel dimensions. It features an intricate system of sensors and emitters that generate and detect specific electromagnetic frequencies believed to resonate with the energy signatures of these beings, allowing them to become visible. The collected data is processed using sophisticated algorithms, which then produce visual representations displayed on a high-resolution screen. The device operates by emitting a controlled burst of energy into a targeted area, scanning for anomalies in the energy field that could indicate the presence of these otherworldly entities. According to NEMS, These mysterious beings interact with these energy fields in ways that are detectable by energy vision sensors. The resulting images reveal shapes and forms that do not correspond to any known physical entities, suggesting the presence of beings from other dimensions. If the device's capabilities are validated, the implications for science and our understanding of the universe would be profound. The ability to photograph these entities would provide tangible evidence for the existence of parallel dimensions, supporting theories that have long been speculative. This breakthrough could revolutionize fields such as physics, cosmology, and even biology as researchers explore the nature and characteristics of these beings and their interactions with our reality. The discovery of these entities also raises significant ethical and philosophical questions. Despite the exciting potential of energy vision, NEM's work has faced significant skepticism and criticism from the scientific community. Critics argue that the device's claims lack empirical validation and that the images produced could result from technical artifacts or environmental factors rather than genuine beings. To address this, Dr. Nim's research has led to the capture of several compelling images of humanoid figures that, according to his analysis, exist between worlds. These beings exhibit physical forms that resemble humans, but with distinct differences, such as elongated limbs, ethereal appearances, and varying levels of translucency. The humanoid entities captured in Nim's photographs exhibit striking and otherworldly characteristics. These beings often appear to be made of a semi-transparent substance, suggesting a physical composition unlike that of humans. Some images show figures with elongated limbs and fingers, oversized eyes, and facial structures that, while vaguely humanoid, differ significantly from typical human anatomy. If proven authentic, the existence of these entities would lend support to theories of multiple dimensions and parallel realities. Such a discovery could challenge fundamental scientific principles and potentially lead to groundbreaking advancements in physics, biology, and technology. However, there is also concern about the potential misinterpretation of the images produced by energy vision. In a field filled with ambiguity, it is crucial to differentiate between genuine scientific breakthroughs and phenomena that can be explained by known physical processes. Rigorous analysis and cross-examination with other research are necessary to prevent premature or inaccurate conclusions. Nim's work with energy vision fits into a broader scientific and philosophical exploration, intersecting with theoretical physics, metaphysical studies, and other disciplines. Theoretical physicists have long proposed various models of parallel universes, and his research, if validated, could offer new perspectives on these long-standing theories. These theories suggest that our three-dimensional universe is part of a much larger, more complex multiverse. NEM's work attempts to bridge the gap between these theoretical models and empirical observation. This research also captures the public imagination, fueling interest in science fiction and speculative fiction. The idea of parallel worlds and alternate realities resonates with fundamental human questions about the nature of existence and our place in the cosmos. Parallel universes have transcended their status as mere elements of science fiction narratives. There exist scientific ideas that currently endorse the concept of parallel universes being outside of our own. Nevertheless, the multiverse theory continues to be one of the most contentious theories in the field of science. The size of our universe is inconceivably vast. Space is filled with an immense number of galaxies, possibly in the hundreds of billions or even trillions. Each of these galaxies is home to billions or trillions of stars. Several academics investigating models of the universe hypothesize that the diameter of the universe may span 7 billion light-years. Some individuals hold the belief that it has the potential to be limitless. The existence of multiverses and parallel worlds is frequently debated in relation to significant scientific concepts, such as the Big Bang, string theory, and quantum physics. The mysterious phenomenon of inflation and the Big Bang has persuaded certain experts that the existence of numerous universes is plausible, if not very probable. Theoretical physicist Alexander Vilenkin from Tufts University in Massachusetts has stated that inflation did not terminate simultaneously in all regions. Although cosmic inflation concluded 13.8 billion years ago, in terms of what we can observe from Earth, it is still ongoing in other regions of the universe. This concept is referred to as the notion of perpetual inflation. In 2011, Valinkin wrote for Scientific American that when inflation stops in a certain location, a new bubble universe emerges. The lack of interconnection between bubble worlds is due to their perpetual expansion. If we were to go on a journey towards the boundary of our cosmic domain, where it potentially intersects with the adjacent cosmic domain, we would be unable to reach it due to the fact that the boundary is receding from us at a velocity exceeding that of light and surpassing any possible speed at which we might travel. However, even if we were able to access the adjacent bubble based on the concept of perpetual inflation in conjunction with string theory, it is possible that our familiar universe, with its specific physical constants and conditions suitable for life, may be fundamentally distinct from the hypothetical bubble universe. Certain scholars derive their concepts of parallel universes from quantum physics, which is the mathematical representation of subatomic particles. In the realm of quantum mechanics, it is conceivable for minuscule particles to simultaneously exist in numerous states with a wave function including all of these potentialities. Nevertheless, upon closer examination, we consistently witness only one of the potential outcomes. According to the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, as explained by the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, humans perceive a result when the wave function collapses into a singular reality. However, the many-worlds hypothesis suggests that whenever an observation is made on a certain state or outcome, a separate world is created where a different quantum consequence is actualized. This is a diverging configuration where with each passing moment, our observed universe splits into nearly limitless possibilities. The parallel universes are entirely distinct and incapable of intersecting. Therefore, although there may exist many copies of yourself leading lives that are marginally or drastically different from your existence in this world, you would never have any knowledge of it. Certain physicists subscribe to the concept of a more planar iteration of multiple universes. If the universe is infinite, there is a limited number of possible arrangements for the building blocks of matter as they come together across boundless space. Ultimately, a finite number of particle kinds will inevitably exhibit a specific layout again. In theory, within a sufficiently vast expanse, such particles will inevitably replicate configurations on a scale as immense as entire solar systems and galaxies. Another foundation for the concept of parallel universes is found in cosmology, particularly through the theory of cosmic inflation. Proposed by physicist Alan Guth in the early 1980s, cosmic inflation posits that the universe underwent an exponential expansion shortly after the Big Bang. This rapid expansion could have created pocket universes within a larger multiverse, each with its own distinct properties and physical laws. This inflationary multiverse suggests that our observable universe is just one of many bubbles within an immense and possibly infinite cosmic landscape. String theory, a theoretical framework that attempts to reconcile general relativity and quantum mechanics, also provides a basis for parallel universes. String theory posits that the fundamental particles of the universe are not point-like, but rather tiny vibrating strings. These strings can exist in multiple dimensions beyond the familiar three spatial dimensions and one-time dimension. Some versions of string theory suggest the existence of brane worlds, parallel universes that exist on different spatial planes within a higher dimensional space. One of the main challenges in studying parallel universes is the lack of direct observational evidence. By definition, parallel universes are separate from our own and are not directly observable. However, researchers are exploring indirect ways to detect their influence. For instance, certain anomalies in the cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang, could potentially be explained by interactions between our universe and other parallel universes. If parallel universes exist, they would have profound implications for physics and cosmology. The existence of multiple universes could explain fundamental questions about the fine-tuning of physical constants in our universe. The apparent precision of these constants, which allow for the existence of life, might be a result of a selection effect. We live in a universe where the constants are just right for life because only such universes can support observers like us. This anthropic principle gains new significance in the context of the multiverse. Although the concept of parallel universes remains largely theoretical, exploring this idea pushes the limits of modern technology and scientific methodologies. Breakthroughs in particle physics, cosmology, and quantum computing could provide new tools for investigating the mysteries of the multiverse. Even if direct evidence remains out of reach, the quest to understand parallel universes fuels innovation and broadens our scientific perspectives. This idea challenges our fundamental understanding of reality. If multiple versions of existence unfold simultaneously, each with its own unique history and events, what does that imply about our perception of the world? At present, the mysteries of parallel universes continue to challenge our understanding of reality, prompting us to rethink our perceptions while expanding the frontiers of science and philosophy. Theoretical frameworks in quantum mechanics, cosmology, and string theory offer plausible explanations for their existence, while the pursuit of this knowledge drives technological advancements and opens new avenues of exploration. Beyond the scientific and technological implications, the idea of parallel universes raises profound philosophical and existential questions about the nature of reality, the concept of free will, and the ethical consequences of our choices. Moving on to the next mystery. A Navajo park ranger is tasked with safeguarding and preserving both the natural and cultural resources within Navajo Nation parks. Their responsibilities typically include patrolling park areas to ensure the safety of visitors, wildlife, and park resources, providing educational and interpretive services about the park's cultural and natural history, and maintaining facilities such as trails, picnic areas, and campsites. However, in recent years, some officers have reported witnessing unusual phenomena within the Navajo Reservation in the American Southwest. This region has long been associated with mysterious legends, and while many officers are reluctant to discuss their experiences, a few have come forward to share what they have seen. One particular location southeast of Ballard, Utah, has gained a reputation as a possible gateway to another world. Known for unexplained occurrences and supernatural encounters, this property has become the focus of increasing interest and speculation in recent years. The property has been given the nickname of the Skinwalker Ranch, given the sheer number of encounters over the past few years that seem to only be growing in oddity. Interestingly, the entire area surrounding Utah and the Navajo Nation has allegedly been home to mysterious creatures, with farmers and landowners coming forward with their stories that detail encountering creatures that seem to have the ability to defy all logic, which in turn has caused them to be pushed out of their homes in fear that something might happen to them. One of the issues is that when police officers report these types of encounters, they are usually mocked by the general public. However, the police in Navajo Nation have a different view on things, and they take these sightings and encounters seriously and will try to look into and understand each report, noting that eyewitnesses are certain that they are seeing something strange, with the officers saying that legends are deeply rooted in the region's history and should be taken seriously. The Navajo Nation Police Department have said that they encourage people to come forward with their encounters and say that each person's encounter will be taken seriously. One Navajo ranger detailed reports of strange dog-like creatures that have been encountered throughout the region and noted that they have the ability to run at extremely fast speeds, going on to say that they closely match the appearance of a humanoid dog. One Navajo ranger opened up about some of the things that they've witnessed while being on duty and said that on one occasion, while driving through Crown Point, he could see a mysterious creature chasing his car. He said that he slowed down in order to get a better look at what it was, thinking that it may have been an animal that was injured. However, he quickly realized that he was driving at 30 miles per hour and noted that this creature was able to keep up with him. The ranger said that when he looked in his rearview mirror, he could see that this creature looked like a giant dog, saying that it ran to the passenger's side and bumped the car. At this point, he pulled to the right so he could get a better look at it, and the only way he could describe it was that it looked like a giant wolf. After this, he said he pulled to the side and then slammed his foot on the brake, which caused the creature to run in front of his car, at which point he then switched on the full beams in order to get a better look at it. After the creature was lit up with the headlights, the ranger estimated that the creature must have been around 6 feet in length. The ranger ended his story by saying that the creature only stayed within the full beams for a matter of seconds before it quickly ran off. To this day, he has no idea what this thing was, and said that if he had to describe the creature, he said that it looked like a mix between a wolf and a man. All across the United States, there are detailed witness accounts that tell consistent stories of impossible to explain humanoid dog-like creatures known as skinwalkers that demonstrate abilities that make the creatures far more supernatural than anything else on Earth. Many encounters are described as being terrifying attacks, whereas others detail origins of an almost otherworldly nature. Where do these creatures come from, and what do they want? Described as being a more than 7-foot-tall humanoid dog-like creature with the antlers of deer, the face of a wolf, 2 jointed legs, and large claws located on each hand, stories of the skinwalker found across North America have been cited as originating more than several thousand years ago from legends as old as humanity can remember. Native American tribes, regardless of differing religious beliefs and origins, tell consistent tales of the skinwalker and its dealings. Much of what is known about skinwalkers comes from ancient Navajo legends. According to Navajo tradition, when a member of the tribe committed an unforgivable crime or violated social taboos, the entire community would come together to perform a cursing ritual before permanently banishing the individual. Isolated and cursed, these outcasts were believed to undergo animalistic transformations whenever their dark urges took hold, turning them into monstrous, dog-like humanoids. Other versions of the legend suggest that rather than being a cursed exile, the skinwalker is actually a solitary witch or sorcerer who has mastered black magic. According to these accounts, the sorcerer gains the ability to shapeshift by donning the hide of an animal, transforming into a grotesque, humanoid version of the creature while still walking on 2 legs. Due to these tales of shape-shifting, curses, and monstrous transformations, many researchers have drawn comparisons between the skinwalker and the European werewolf legend. Could this indicate that the skinwalker, once believed to be unique to the Americas, shares a connection with similar entities around the world? Interestingly, modern sightings of a creature known as the dogman, a beast often associated with werewolf folklore, appear to bear striking similarities to the skinwalker. In regions where skinwalker encounters are frequently reported, dogman sightings are just as common. Even more intriguing, a large number of reports describing dogmen and other werewolf-like beings seem to originate from Utah, the very state where the infamous Skinwalker Ranch is located. Additionally, both creatures have the uncanny ability to mimic both human voices alongside animal sounds, with stories that dogman encounters and skinwalker encounters led witnesses into hearing their own voice or a friend's voice repeated to them in perfect cadence and pitch. Similar to the stories in which the Navajo told of the witch being able to take the form of other animals, it appears that the skinwalker sightings have been paired with other strange humanoid animal hybrids all across North America. If we accept that the stories of strange humanoid creatures across North America are, in fact, encounters with the skinwalker, what could this tell us about the species and its abilities? According to the National Institute for Discovery Science investigators, the private scientific research team deployed at the Skinwalker Ranch during its 20-year joint investigation for Bigelow Aerospace and the United States government's Department of Defense, the Skinwalker could very well be an interdimensional creature that hops between universes and uses hidden portals found within the mountains, forests, and national parks of our country as entry and exit points into our world. National Institute for Discovery Science researchers claim that while positioned on a ridge overlooking the area, the team began to notice what they described as a hovering ball of white light through night vision goggles pointed towards one of the middle homesteads of the property. As it hovered about 4 feet off the ground, the witnesses claimed that the white ball of light began to open up into an estimated 3-foot-wide circular portal. However, on the night vision goggles, a device that can detect and measure near infrared and ultraviolet radiation, the portal appeared to be more like a 3-dimensional tunnel hovering above the ground. The researchers then described that an 8-foot-tall, completely black humanoid creature slowly began to crawl out of the 3-dimensional tunnel, elbowing its way through the portal. The creature then grabbed the edges of the tunnel, pulled itself through, and dropped down 4 feet before running out into the darkness, out of the sight of the researchers watching. Shortly thereafter, the portal began to close in on itself, forming a bright white ball of light before fading in intensity and disappearing entirely. Taking into account this strange sighting and encounter witnessed by the investigators, could this mean that the skinwalker creature is in fact an interdimensional species that continues to invade our world via the use of self-creating wormholes? If wormholes could in fact be created by the creatures, Einstein had once theorized that due to the nature of the universe as a fabric of space and time, a wormhole could theoretically do more than just connect 2 points of space in a universe, and could also connect 2 points in time. According to the reports, there appears to be a substantial amount of evidence for strange connections between the distant past and present across the Skinwalker Ranch. One such story is told surrounding a massive wolf that had been spotted on the Skinwalker Ranch property. The first weekend that the Gorman family inhabited the property, they noticed what they believed to have been a large canine roaming their property nearby their cattle pen. According to the father and eldest son, the canine displayed no signs of aggression whatsoever and was merely sniffing the ground and slowly walking along the open field before approaching the nearby cattle pen where the Gorman family was standing. Most likely, a little curious as to the creature, a cow approached the large wolf-like canine from behind the fence. Almost in an immediate switch in personality, the wolf reached into the fence with its jaws and clamped onto the face of the cow, trying to pull it through the fence while growling. In an attempt to save their cattle, the eldest son of the Gorman family, Terry Gorman, along with his father, ran up to the wolf-like canine creature and began beating it with large sticks to scare it away. A common tactic used against coyotes, foxes, and wolves trying to get their jaws on livestock prey. However, as the two men began beating the wolf, the creature never flinched and seemed to have been unaffected by the strikes, continuing to clamp down on the muzzle of the cow. Fearing for his cattle, the father of the Gorman family told his son to go into the house and grab a revolver so that he could take out the wolf. When the son came back out, the father immediately took aim at the wolf and fired 4 times, noting that he did this from increasingly close range, starting from only a few feet away. On the 4th shot, the wolf released the calf, but demonstrated no signs of pain and had no visible wounds or bleeding, and began staring at the 2 men in the pen with a curious look. In fear for their life, the son ran inside and grabbed a rifle for his father, who then let off another round into the creature at about 20 feet, but noticed there wasn't even a slight recoil from the animal and that it didn't let out any yelps of pain. As the father continued to fire, the wolf slowly retreated across the field. Determined to stop it before it could pose a further threat, the father and son immediately gave chase, tracking the creature as it crossed the field and headed toward a small creek. However, as they followed its prints, they suddenly discovered that the tracks vanished without any sign of the animal leaving the muddy area. When researchers later questioned the 2 men about the species of the wolf or canine they had encountered, they were shown various images of local wildlife. Without hesitation, the Gorman family pointed to one specific picture, insisting with absolute certainty that it matched the creature they had seen. However, the researchers were stunned by their response. They informed the family that the animal in the photograph was a dire wolf, a species that had been extinct in North America for over 10,000 years. Could this encounter suggest that portals at Skinwalker Ranch extend not just to other dimensions, but also to the distant past? If so, did a gateway briefly open, allowing a dire wolf to appear and then vanish thousands of years after its extinction? Until further evidence emerges, the portal theory behind the bizarre events at Skinwalker Ranch remains just that, a theory. Moving on to the next mystery. In 1982, Lam Corwin became Hong Kong's first recognized serial killer. By day, he was a taxi driver, but he earned the grim nickname, the Rainy Night Butcher and the Jars Killer. Over a period of 7 months, he brutally murdered 4 young women, hiding their bodies beneath his family's couch and storing their dismembered parts in jars. Each killing escalated in horror, involving both amputation and asphyxiation, with the gruesome details later portrayed in unsettling films. Who exactly was Lam Corwin, and what dark thoughts drove him to commit such atrocities? What led these women to fall victim to his twisted schemes? Born on May 22, 1955, in central Hong Kong, Lam Corwin had a rough upbringing. His father, Lam Wylock, led a tumultuous life, balancing a legal wife, 2 mistresses, and 10 children. Lam's difficult childhood was shaped by constant hardships. He faced severe mistreatment in his early years, with his father regularly subjecting both him and his biological mother to violent abuse while they lived in Malaysia. Even after his parents' divorce, life didn't improve for him. His father's cruelty was so intense that when Lam was only 2 years old, he suffered a fractured skull and lost consciousness after his father slammed his head into a wall. Between 1957 and 1962, Lam lived in Brunei, sharing a dormitory with his father's half-siblings and mistresses before returning to Hong Kong. Although he initially performed well in elementary school, things became more difficult when he transferred to Ricci Middle School in Sham Shui Po for Junior High in 1968. Due to his father's demanding job, Lam had to balance school with 2 part-time jobs, which negatively impacted his academic performance, particularly in mathematics. By 1970, the added responsibility of managing his father's motorcycle shop after school led to a further decline in his grades. Severe therapy marked the further collapse of his relationship with his father. Lam also started running away from home a lot as a result of this. It had set in as a pattern in his life, one that lasted into middle school. Lam had formally begun working in his father's motorbike shop after completing his secondary education. Later on, he went on to learn how to service air conditioners from a relative. All of this, with its familial issues and difficult moments, had prepared Lam Corwin to become the enigmatic figure he would later become. He'd been banished from his house in early 1973 after a falling out with his father. He forced a woman into a public lavatory on Hock Yuan Street and hung home with a knife, and then groped her indecently there. His arrest resulted from this incident. After a medical evaluation, it was determined that Lam had mental health problems, which made him ineligible for a trial or jail. He was thus given a treatment term at King Shan Mental Hospital. Following 102 days of medical care, he was released from the hospital and chose to adopt the name Lam Joachim. By the time he was 19, his family had become aware of his strange preoccupation with the feminine form and his stash of pornography kept within a metal ammunition box. His family did make an effort to assist him, but it didn't seem to be working. His behavior became increasingly unsettling as a result of his inability to be satisfied by these behaviors. After acquiring a Polaroid camera, he started capturing clandestine photos of ladies from beneath lavatory doors, which in turn led the women to pursue him down the street. Later on at their Kwantong home, he was caught glancing at his sister as she undressed outside the bathroom. The family decided to move to a new location in To Kwa Wan as a result. He shared a room with his younger brother at their new house, using separate bunk bed compartments to divide the space. There was an arrangement. Their possessions were to be kept apart, unhindered by the other side. He got his taxi driver's license in 1978 and went by Lam Corwin to begin his official taxi driving career. He was switched to a night schedule about 1980, which meant that his family would only get to see him every 14 to 15 days. He then became suddenly interested in photography in 1981, which led him to start studying this art form. But since he didn't have a dark room at home to print color images, he went looking for a photo studio. He enrolled in a photography course offered by the Chinese YMCA of Hong Kong at the Waterloo Road Association in order to avoid being suspected. One of his classmates was using Photoshop Tim Sha Shui. Lam made up a tale, saying that she was a part-time photographer who worked in a mortuary and needed help taking autopsy pictures. Amazingly, his account was approved, and in order to prevent colleagues from becoming alarmed, the fellow student created Lam's images. When he drove a night taxi for a year, his mother saw a marked shift in his behavior. He began to disregard personal hygiene, declining to take a shower or change into new clothes. His mother even saw him wandering home in the middle of the night, like a sleepwalker, as his demeanor turned hopeless. At the age of 27, Lam changed on the dreary night of February 3, 1982, from a simple peeping Tom to something more evil. One day, when he was working as a taxi driver in the Tsim Sha Sui neighborhood, he was looking for clients who were coming home after a night out. And this is where the situation became gloomy. Chan Fong Lan, a clearly drunk woman, emerged from a restaurant at around 4 in the morning, in dire need of a ride. Many taxi drivers refused to take her because of the condition she was in. Lam, who didn't appear to care, welcomed her inside his taxi and offered to drive her home despite this. Halfway through the ride, the inebriated woman asked to halt. Lamb also opened the door to throw up as she braked close to a petrol station. Uncertain about her location after this unpleasant incident, she requested Lamb to head back the other way. Lamb later admitted that he had been reluctant to murder her at first because he was disgusted by her vomiting, but that changed when he decided he could take no more. Still in the Tsim Sha Tsui neighborhood, he went into a garage, circled to the passenger door, and strangled the girl with an electric line. He drove to his house at 5 in the morning, when he usually ended work, and parked in front of the building. He hid the body in a big bag and moved it across the pavement inside his flat building as the street was empty. When Lamb went by, the night watchman, who was sleeping on a cot in the entry hall, was still asleep. He moved as stealthily as he could into the apartment, concealing the body beneath the sofa. Lamb stayed in his bed for several hours pretending to sleep while he waited for his family to leave after breakfast. He woke up and got ready in his room after his brother and parents left the flat. Taking 500 yuan out of the victim's pocket, Lamb went to the street and bought a power saw. To keep everything contained, including the baseboards, he carefully covered the floor with plastic. Once the victim's body was on the sheet, he began the horrific process of dismemberment. Despite his precautions to prevent blood from spilling, some still splattered onto the walls. For hours, he continued to cut apart the body, all while documenting the entire process on video, which he later named Serious Secret. He separated the body into 7 parts, wrapping the head, limbs, and torso in paper before sealing them in plastic bags. The most chilling part was his decision to preserve the victim's genitalia in a Tupperware container filled with rice wine. Afterward, he meticulously cleaned the crime scene, wiping down the walls and floors, rolling up the plastic sheet, and making sure no evidence remained. He discreetly transported the body parts to his taxi in several trips, taking great care to avoid being noticed. Confident he had wiped away all traces of his crime, he then drove to various locations to dispose of the remains. He halted when he came upon an empty area on the banks of the Xingman River, close to Chaten. He was determined to find a remote location to dispose of the body. He removed each parcel from his trunk one at a time and tossed them into the river, making sure no one was watching. The bundles were carried out to sea by the murky waves. The torrential rain carried the limbs from Lucky Plaza to the Bel Air Gardens neighborhood, where they drifted. On the radio, more than a week after the horrific deed, Lamb had learnt of a terrifying discovery. On the Xingman River's bank, a limb had been found. More body pieces were found in disturbing ways in the following days, allowing the police to piece together the awful puzzle. Tidal patterns were utilized by investigators to calculate the moment the body was dumped into the river. Notably, one of the arms had an uncommon tattoo, a knife-through heart, that was uncommon for a woman to have at the time. This is what helped them figure out who the victim was. It was Chanfeng Lan, age 21. Even after the authorities issued a public call for witnesses, they encountered regrettable difficulties. The taxi driver did not approach, and the license plate went unnoticed by Chanfeng Lan's friends. Lamb didn't learn about the body parts discovery for over a week. The mother of 2 children and nightclub hostess in Tsim Sha Tsui, Chanfeng Lan, was identified by the authorities as the deceased person. The graphic details described Chan's night out with her friends and sister, her taxi ride home, and the terrible end Lam Corwin dealt her. Lam Corwin had been opportunistic in his first murder, but he had planned his second one very carefully. Being a perfectionist, he was determined to be more organized. He chose to use professional equipment rather than a power saw because he was aiming for surgical precision. He had read up on knives, blades, and scissors, and had even gone so far as to buy specialty surgical instruments and multiple bottles of formaldehyde. Formaldehyde was a colorless, strong-smelling chemical that was used for disinfection and preservation. 3 days after buying his apparatus, on May 29, 1982, Lamb had taken another victim. He succeeded with his second target, a pub employee. This time, he picked Chanwan Kit Cooley and used an electric cord to strangle her before escorting her home. He waited in bed, like before, for his family to get home from work before beginning the grisly chore of dismembering the body. Lamb had carefully planned the room and given it careful thought for days before acting. In order to keep the floor clear of bloodstains, he had placed a sizable tray underneath the body before getting his video camera. Investigators found that he had positioned the tray beneath the family's parakeet cage after reviewing the footage again. Lamb displayed remarkable competence as he dissected the body with meticulous care. After he had done slicing it apart, Lamb snapped another photo of each bodily part. After much deliberation and numerous nighttime excursions, he eventually discovered the ideal location for disposing of the body. This time, he packed the body parts inside a large plastic bag and put it in the trunk of his cab. He drove to Hong Kong Island through the tunnel early in the morning. The selected location, a heavily forested residential neighborhood called Tying Road, was located 20 minutes east of the city center. He parked in a conspicuous area of the street and then began to struggle to get the bulky bag out of the trunk. He took it a little distance up to the railing, where he watched it tumble into a muddy gully as he hurled the body over it. Lamb thought back on that night's events often in the days that followed, not out of regret or guilt, but rather out of a desire to better himself. 2 weeks later, he made another attack. On June 17, 1982, Ling Sao-wan, a 29-year-old nightclub cleaner, got off the job at 4 in the morning and got into Lamb's taxi. She soon suffered her terrible end. Lamb brought her body back to his home and carried out a series of grotesque acts on it. He documented these horrifying actions, taking both photographs and videos, and titled the recording Operation Rainy Night. Using his camcorder, set up on the bunk bed with the selfie feature, he filmed the dismemberment in disturbing detail, focusing on the gruesome process. This time, he cut open the abdomen, removed the bowel, and even attempted to taste human flesh, but quickly abandoned the idea, feeling nauseous. Later, he disposed of the severed limbs in a Hessian bag on Tying Road, marking another horrifying chapter in his rampage. With each crime, Lamb grew more brazen. He had begun carefully planning his next act, familiar with the pubs in the Tsim Sha Tsui area, where women often waited alone for his taxi. Originally, he had intended his next victim to be a woman from a higher social class, but his first 3 victims, whom he referred to as terrible girls, didn't fit that profile. This time, he deliberately targeted a young woman who appeared more innocent and naive. And it was Ling Wei-sum, 17, this time. On July 2, 1982, Lamb had discovered her outside the Tsim Sha Tsui Hotel. Before the final examinations, she had gone to a party at her high school, but she had made the decision to leave after supper. To make sure she got home safely, her high school pals had put her in a taxi. After guiding her to a remote road, Lamb parked his vehicle. When he took her wrist and chained her to the front seat, the youngster was horrified. He couldn't have gone home that early. It was just 9:30 p.m. However, he had another purpose for wanting to keep her in his vehicle. Unexpectedly, he desired companionship. He desired to speak with her. He was lonely and in need of company, so he spent hours tying Ling up with questions about her life in general, her family, and her religion. All in all, Lamb was having fun with her company. That was insufficient to derail his ghastly scheme. Around 4 in the morning, the adolescent dozed off. At this point, Lamb began using the electric cable to strangle her. After that, he carried the defenseless girl's lifeless body home and went about his daily business of waiting for his family to vacate the flat. He recorded after he made sure no one was home by mounting his video camera on a high shelf. This was the footage that the police would eventually play in court. The video was quite unsettling. Lamb was acting inappropriately and necrophiliacally with the dead body in the video. It was significant to observe that the young victim's thighs had been burned by a lamp that had fallen on them earlier when he was setting up the lighting apparatus to record his actions. In order to later refer to it as the 4th operation, he also recorded it on camera and took pictures of her. Then he dismembered the body, just as he had done with the victims who would subsequently return to torment him. He left the body on Taihang Road thereafter. On August 10, 1982, Lamb attempted to expand the picture of his 4th victim that had been severed. By coincidence, Lamb's friend had a broken Photoshop enlarger, which led Lamb's film negatives to be sent to the Mung Kok branch for enlargement. During the manual process, the photo editors noticed unsettling details in the developed images, which hinted at possible body mutilation. Disturbed by what they saw, the shop's supervisor alerted the police, especially after discovering images of a severed breast and a burn mark on the victim's thigh. Upon receiving the report, the authorities passed the case to the Kowloon Regional Homicide Squad. Detective Sergeant Lee Kwan took charge of the investigation, interviewing employees at the Tsim Sha Tsui and Mong Kok branches, and securing both the negatives and photographs. The forensic team conducted a detailed analysis, with officers carefully examining the images. Their findings indicated that the body in the photos had been dead for less than 3 hours, based on the skin's color and blood condition. The manner of dismemberment showed a lack of medical knowledge, ruling out the possibility that the images were from educational materials. Moreover, the standard green sheet typically used during autopsies was missing. Forensic experts confirmed that the photographs had been taken directly from a real corpse, not from printed images, further confirming the horrifying nature of the evidence. Plus, in one picture, a tiny droplet of water mirrored half the face of a girl who looked like Ling Y Sim, who had disappeared on July 2nd. The police decided to make an arrest after coming to the conclusion that Lang had been murdered based on the findings of the Scientific Forensics Division and the medical examiner. Sergeant Lee had led the crew in an ambush at the photo shop early on August 17th. He asked the clerk to combine a few more pictures with Lam's collection of 13 and encouraged him to talk with Lam about the pictures, where they were taken, and why they were enlarged. The intention was to capture the dialogue and acquire proof. Lam arrived by cab at around 6 o'clock in the evening to pick up the pictures. In response to his friend's request, he carefully examined each picture and clarified that the larger versions would be utilized for courtroom presentations, especially so jurors could see the contents more clearly. According to Lam, he worked in several mortuaries on a regular basis. Sergeant Lee revealed his name, verified the pictures, and made the payment. He then arrested Lam. At first, Lam made up a false narrative, claiming that the images belonged to a purported four-eyed man from the Oriental Daily that he was going to see at Tokwa Wan. Investigations, however, showed that there was no such individual. As a result, the authorities moved quickly to acquire a search warrant so they could examine Lam's home in the allotted 48 hours and gather tangible evidence. They would have had to release him otherwise. In Lam's cabinets, they found surgical instruments, personal belongings, preservatives, anatomical books, and severed body parts, including the dead women's breasts and vaginas. Additionally, his taxi was seized and searched by the police, who also left a notice on the windscreen indicating that it was involved in a crime and instructing not to have it towed. After the car was examined further, evidence was found in the glove compartment, including wire and handcuffs. There were also 2 holes in the back of the front seat, which were probably made by one of the dead women's high heels during a struggle. Investigators allegedly uncovered a vast archive that included 696 negatives, 1,500 color slides, and 1,900 carefully classified photos that showed Corwin's victims at different points in his crimes. His careful documentation greatly facilitated the police inquiry. The body parts of all his victims were eventually found by authorities, allowing for their identification and return to their individual families. To help with the inquiry, Lam Corwin was taken to the police station with his father and younger brother. Authorities thought that Lam and his brother had not acted alone, given their small living area and the amount of evidence found in their single bedroom. After being detained and questioned extensively for 3 days, Lin was freed. The younger Lam stated that he had little contact with his brother because of their divergent schedules and that he was unaware of or did not participate in the incidents. Their father and younger brother pushed Corwin to make it clear that they had nothing to do with it in order to expedite their release. Lam's mother went to the police station also, hoping to talk her son into confessing. Corwin helped the police identify the victims' body parts. But even with their assistance, the police continued to suspect that the younger Lam might be involved. As a result, the 2 brothers were brought before the Sampo Kong Magistrates Court and charged with 4 charges of murder. After that, they were moved to the Su Lam Psychiatric Center for evaluation. In keeping with the younger brother's repeated claims of innocence, he was ultimately freed following the 6th hearing on the grounds of inadequate evidence. In the meantime, a medical examination determined that Corwin was competent to stand trial, demonstrated an extraordinarily high IQ, reportedly over 130, and was of sound mind. After the establishment of prima facie evidence, the matter was forwarded to the Supreme Court for a trial. On March 3, 1983, the trial began, and a large crowd gathered outside the court to see Lam's behavior. The case's specifics, according to the authorities, were too upsetting for women. To guarantee a fair trial, 7 carefully chosen male jurors were chosen. Only the jurors, judges, and attorneys were permitted to watch Lamb's videotapes, so ordered to avoid shock. The organs of the victim were also kept out of the courtroom. The prosecution called witnesses throughout the trial, including members of Lamb's family, the police office, Photoshop employees, and forensic and scientific specialists. Acknowledging the strength of the evidence against him, Lamb attempted to reach a compromise by confessing to manslaughter in return for a shorter sentence. But this appeal was turned down. The court instructed the jury to focus on deciding between manslaughter and murder charges, rather than questioning Lamb's overall guilt. The trial included testimony from 5 psychiatrists, with much of the discussion revolving around Lamb's mental state. 2 experts doubted his ability to control his actions, while 3 others suggested that he had an unhealthy obsession with women. After an 18-day trial, on April 8 of that year, the judge advised the jury to consider that Lamb likely had some control over his actions during the crimes. After over 3 hours of deliberation, the jury unanimously convicted him of murder, while also determining that he was both insane and sane at different points. Initially, Lamb was sentenced to death by hanging. However, after Hong Kong abolished the death penalty in 1984, the governor granted him clemency, reducing his sentence to life imprisonment. Following his conviction, Lamb was first held at Stanley Prison before being transferred to Shek Pik Prison, where other inmates referred to him as Lamb. He remained largely withdrawn, rarely discussing his past, and often preferring solitude. Reports suggest that he lived a quiet life, earning little, avoiding social interaction, and keeping mostly to himself. While incarcerated, he attended Catholic and Christian classes, read newspapers, and studied both medical and religious texts. He didn't have any family visits, although he did occasionally get visits from church volunteers. Newspapers and books littered his cell, and he became well known among the other prisoners for his expertise in purple star astrology, a kind of Chinese fortune-telling. Prison guards asked him for advice. Lamb applied for parole in 2018, after serving for more than 34 years at the age of 62, which alarmed the public. The parole board reviews the case every 5 years. However, at that time, they decided not to grant parole due to worries about the possibility of repeat offenses. Additionally, according to reports, Lamb was observed by some inmates making elaborate displays out of cockroaches that were kept in matchboxes. Lamb's mother testified during the 1983 trial regarding the physical abuse her oldest son suffered as a youngster. She described how Corwin's father had been abusive, even inflicting significant head damage on the boy when he was only 2 years old, which left him with 2 black eyes. She had been abused as a child in the household as well. Experts have connected serious brain traumas sustained as a kid to psychological problems later in life, including necrophilia. According to reports, Lamb told a doctor that he thought God had given him the go-ahead to carry out the murders. There is still uncertainty around Lamb's behavior after the probe. Investigators were baffled as to why, despite having the appropriate equipment, he chose to process films at a Kodak store. Others surmised that, having been dangerously close to being arrested once, he may have secretly wanted to be arrested. The gruesome results of the autopsy and the manner in which the victims were mutilated suggested the presence of a skilled killer. Nevertheless, because of the case's publicity, Lamb's family had difficulties in spite of these horrifying facts. They tried to sell their flat, but the high profile of the building made it difficult, so they were forced to stay. After the investigation was closed, the police destroyed all of Lamb's videos and images out of concern for possible public attention. Nevertheless, a few of the victims' organs had an unexpected outcome. For instructional reasons, they are kept at the Wan Chai Forensic Medicine headquarters. In a somber acknowledgement of the lives lost to his son's malice, Lamb's father dedicated a memorial tablet at Yuan Jin College on November 16, 1986, hoping to atone for his son's transgressions. As we reach the end of Lamb Corwin's chilling tale, we must remember the 4 innocent women whose lives were brutally taken. His case stands as a grim reminder of the complexities of the human mind and the catastrophic consequences it can unleash. It highlights the critical need for mental health awareness and a deeper understanding of psychological disorders. Now 68 years old, Lam Corwin remains locked away in the maximum security Shek Pik prison on Lantau Island, serving a life sentence for the horrific crimes that rocked Hong Kong in the early 1980s. His notoriety as the city's first known serial killer will forever be marked in history. His reign of terror ended on August 17, 1982, when he was arrested at the age of 27. His horrifying post-crime rituals, including hiding the victims beneath his family's sofa and preserving body parts, earned him the infamous titles the Rainy Night Butcher and the Jars Murderer. These deeply unsettling behaviors offer a haunting glimpse into the mind of a profoundly disturbed individual. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring these intriguing unsolved mysteries with me. If you found the video fascinating, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Unsolved Mystique for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries. Your support helps me bring you more compelling content. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or any mysteries you'd like me to cover next. See you in the next video.